Oh, hi. I just had a thought, or a thought has been brewing. A situation has been brewing over the last couple of days, and I identified it yesterday and today. So I thought I would share. And because it's a Scorpio moon and Venus is shadowing, and Mars and Venus are moving to their closest point on Monday, the 3rd of July, I just thought I just was like, oh, I've got to share this. Okay, so let's go and have a look. Okay, so now here we have Mars and Venus. So this is right now. All right, so we have Mars and Venus. They're 4 degrees apart-ish at the moment. And on Monday the 3rd, like I was saying, they get to 3.27, 3 degrees, 27 minutes of arc together. All right, now they then start moving apart. So if you could imagine it like they're all hot and horny right now and they're getting it on, and then all of a sudden on Monday, Venus turns her back on Mars. And it's not that she's turning her back on Mars, she's stopping. And it's like she's having a thought. Okay. So she's like, "Ooh, oh my God. Okay." And it was beautiful because I suggest anyone read Dr. Nicole LaPera. She is amazing. And if I can just find you the one that was down here, where is it? Okay. It is pretty good. Just bear with me for a second. Okay, yeah, okay. So with Mars and Venus coming together and then Venus almost stopping, it's like this. Before you connect with a person's body, witness their patterns. All right. Sexual chemistry is literally intoxicating to the body. Oxycontin, oxytocin binds us to reality and creates deeper attachments. So it's a matter of making conscious choices, not hormonal mistakes. So that was one of the ones that I thought of that was just so good. So Venus is stopping and having a thought right now, and she starts to slow down so that she can go into her retrograde phase on the 23rd of July. All right. So now Mars within 1 week, right? So she's stopped and she's having a thought. She's realized that it's not just the oxytocin attachment. It's also, is this really the best thing for me? All right. So now it comes down to the relationship between the two people. It's got to be more than just physical and hormonal. Right. So another thing that I found in her thing was the trouble that people are having in relationships. All right. So now Venus and Mars, both of them in Leo, in powerful places, feeling their best. Mars is functioning well. Venus is she's just cruising and smooth and beautiful. Now, in relationships, it comes down to power and control. Whose decisions are more important to be listened to? So this morning I was talking about being heard. And, again, all of the things just sort of made me go, isn't this interesting? Venus is stopping to do her retrograde phase, which is a radical reassessment of her life. It is all of the things that she loves. It is, think of the heart chakra and creativity and the fifth house, Leo, romance, the fruits of our loins. So it's sexual, it's the okay, so the eighth house is sexual intimacy from partnership, whereas the fifth house is getting it on when you've just met someone. All right. So now the issues that Venus and Mars are having, like I said, the first one being power and control. The second one is care and closeness. Are you listening to me? Are we are you respecting me? And well, actually the third one is respect and recognition and feeling heard and valued. All right. So these are generally the things that people have troubles with in relationships. And another big one, honesty. All right. So, you can be madly in love with your partner and everything is amazing in all other areas except for sex. And then you've got to be realistic and go, if someone has grown up in a sexually open family where love and closeness and personal affection is something that is okay to be displayed and expressed, then that's totally different than a person that has grown up in a household where intimacy is only behind the closed doors. Any sort of sexual nature or skin being shown, or powerful women in the family, like if anyway, the point being, you've got to acknowledge the early family conditioning of sexuality to acknowledge sexual compatibility. All right, so there was another one that Nicole LaPera was talking about, and this is attachment patterns. All right, so this one here, look, I feel pressured to have sex and then I shut down, whereas the other one is I feel vulnerable and I need sexuality to feel connection. All right, so when you get those two people triggering each other off, again, someone who is like, I need you to hold me and make love to me, whereas the other one's like, you want me to perform and I feel like a toy animal, and now I have sexual dysfunction because I'm not feeling right. So that was another one that I thought was important to just become more aware of people's early childhood conditioning. All right, so we have the sun in Cancer right now. All right, so our thoughts and our experience now are looking at Cancer stuff. So early childhood, ancestry, family conditioning, the nurturing parent. Now, the 4th and the 10th axis are our mothers and fathers, and then the sun and the moon are indicators of our parents as well. So, I mean, I've broken it down for quite a few people recently with the Venus stuff. What are the patterns that you are actively working with or integrating or changing? There's the sexuality in the air. Sex, it's something that is still taboo, yet a human need. It is a function of the body. It's how we got here. Like, my parents had sex and here I am. Whereas, and like I said, we'll go back to the families that don't talk about sex, getting together with someone that was very open and PDA approved. So that was another one. All right, now another thing to consider: emotional intelligence and emotional immaturity. All right, so these guys can be hot and heavy, and Mars is like this big hunk fest and Venus is like fabulous. But if one of those two people are emotionally immature, or I'm only using an example here. So just say the guy got brought up in a family where it was housewife mom, that the 1950s mentality has continued on down the family line. There's an expectation that the man goes to work, the woman has the kids. What about if the woman still has to work and still has to do the kids, which like a lot of families are? I mean, it's much more open now that men do their fair share, but it's still, is I'm sorry. Okay, so is that still a condition of emotional immaturity? Does the man expect the woman to, mummy him, provide for him, make sure that everything's done for him, his clothes are washed, and then you get resentment because, the female's not getting her needs met, or, insert partner here. So I'm definitely not painting everyone with the same brush, but it's another consideration. All right, so I looked at attachment patterns. All right, and what value do you put on sexual intimacy? Like Nicole LaPera was saying, do you have an anxious attachment, which is like, you get scared and performance anxiety, or do you have the avoidant one where you're like, I feel bad, I need sex so that I get that oxytocin or endorphin rush, or all of those things. Do you have daddy issues? Like, oh my God, are you sexually inappropriate because you're trying to seek fulfillment and connection? I mean, there's a whole lot of things, but it came down to just what I've been talking about, you know, as Mars goes, so Venus is stopping and having a think. And then as Mars goes into Virgo, and he's going to get his critical analysis hat on, but it's going to be a good time because 3 times during this Venus retrograde, Venus opposes, in regards to health, Venus opposes Hygeia. And so like that is your mental health, your well-being. And this is, you know, what are the things that are restricting my freedom, you know, and I mean, just by this chart, again, with the early childhood conditioning. So Virgo's got a little bit more critical. Venus is just about to go retrograde. You know, she gets to 28. All right, so she goes retrograde on the 23rd, conjunct Mercury here, you know, so she is absolutely thinking, how am I not the best I can be? As soon as she goes retrograde, she goes within, but she's conjunct Mercury, so it's all up in her head. Mars is over here in Virgo, and he's opposing Saturn. You know, it's like, I mean, I'm not even getting into the stars for those times. I will obviously in the week ahead. But I just wanted to bring this to your attention and to see whether these are, we'll stop share, to see whether these are issues that you are experiencing in your own relationships as Venus goes retrograde. Do you look at your partner? Is there resentment? Okay. Is he not meeting his is he not meeting your expectations, and is he not living up and fulfilling his side of the bargain? All right, again, if there is a sexual mismatch, can you look back at where it came from? Can you forgive? Can you be honest and address those issues at their most fundamental level? You know, can you say, I need more sex, or I need more intimacy? Or reverse, does he always want the intimacy and sex, and you're like, or maybe you have a low self-esteem and you don't want to get naked? Maybe you just don't put the same amount of importance on that sexual connection. You know, again, do you feel like his mother, not his lover? So I just, you know, these are things that are coming up, and I just thought that I would like to address them. And if you have any questions, or if you have any statements, if you relate to this, if this is something that is actually happening for you, then by the end of this Venus retrograde, it is something that you can absolutely dive into and unpick and reword the statements that you have in your head, and hopefully be brave enough to be honest, to get it out in the open if it is something that needs to be addressed. Okay, so I will pop this in the modules, and I will chat with you soon.